Things I wish I'd known before I started sewing, or at least things I wish I had put into practice before I started sewing. When you start a new hobby, there are basic things you probably don't know about, or maybe you are not listening properly. So these are mine. The first one, of course, is practice and patience. You need to practice a lot and be really patient with yourself, because this is not as easy as just sewing 2 panels of material and becoming the next Yves Saint Laurent. So just be patient and don't be hard on yourself, because this takes time. And you can't be throwing cushions out of the window like me when something doesn't turn out as you expect it to. Another useful tip is to always have a look in the remnant box and get the remnants you like. All the things that look nicer than the rest of the stuff they have in there is good to take home with you. And it's also true that it's not good to hoard a lot of material, but it's good to practice your different techniques and to practice different styles and with different types of fabrics. And most of my projects have been with remnants, and I'm quite happy with them because I've learned a lot. Remnant, 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 another remnant, 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 loads. And with the rest of the fabrics you get by the meter, it's good to go with your project thought ahead. It's not good to buy 2 meters of material if you don't know what you're going to use it for, because maybe you are short of material or maybe you waste a lot, and it's not good for your pocket or for the planet. Another thing with materials is not to choose them by the print. Sometimes you get to the fabric store and you think, oh my god, that's beautiful, what a beautiful pattern. But it's probably not the right material for your project. And I remember my grandma used to tell me, that is no good for what you want to do. And I didn't get it. I was really stubborn saying, but it's just fabric, it's just material, why can't I use it? But it is true, there are certain materials for certain things and you must respect that. You can use upholstery material for a blouse, for example. So you have to be really careful about that. Another thing you have to take into account when buying fabric by the meter is to get a bit extra. And you might think I'm contradicting myself, but if you are working on a project and, for example, you are matching the pattern, the print, or maybe you don't know how much it's going to shrink when you wash it, or you don't know if you're going to cut it wrong somehow. So you might get a bit extra just in case. And one thing I just said is to wash and iron your materials before using them. This is really important because you don't know how much a piece of fabric is going to shrink, and you won't be able to wear that beautiful purple dress you spent hours sewing. That happened to me and it's heartbreaking, and I could never wear it because it shrank to this size. It was this size. And of course, depending on the fabric, iron them as well, because you can't cut on a wrinkly material. It's impossible and it won't turn out great. This is of course when we're talking especially about cotton or linen or any natural materials, but just wash them all in case, just in case. You have to follow the grain line when cutting. I'm sure you have a t-shirt in your wardrobe that doesn't fit properly and it twists, and you end up with the side seam all the way down your belly button. And this is because the fast fashion boutiques, or well, shops, don't cut to the grain. They don't follow the grain when cutting. They want to make the most of the material they have, and it is true that when you cut something you end up wasting a lot of fabric, but that's why you have to cut following the grain line, because if not it will twist and it will look terrible. It happened to me a few times when I started sewing, not because I didn't know it, just because I wasn't listening and I thought I was being really clever by cutting in any direction I wanted to. And you can't, you really can't. I've said it 1,000 times before, and it is that tools are an investment and not a waste of money. With the right tools you get a nice result and the process will be much easier. With a good pair of scissors, for example, you get a nice clean cut and you won't be wasting time trying to cut, and the scissor will be twisting and making a mess of your nice fabric. So invest in some good tools because it is worth it. And this applies to anything in the sewing room. Bad quality needles don't sew at all, and for example with thread they break if they are not good quality. So get a few good tools. And of course you have to take care of all these tools so they last longer. For example, a cover will avoid your machine to get dust if you're not using it, and of course you have to clean it and grease it so it works properly. All the thread leaves a lot of lint behind when you're sewing, and this accumulates. I didn't know this until I knew, and it makes a lot of difference. I spent I don't know how long without cleaning my machine, and I was disgusted when I opened it for the first time. One thing that used to get on my nerves for years was that when I started sewing something, the machine would get the thread out, and I used to go mad because I used to have to thread it again, and it was a pain. Just pull some more thread out. Your mental health will appreciate it, I'm sure. Or another thing you can do is to hold it against the machine when you start sewing, so that way the first stroke won't send it out. And one thing I didn't know until a few months ago, I was really surprised, is that you can sharpen your scissors with tin foil. I had no idea. I think it's really useful because it's something we all have at home. I'm sure at the haberdashery they sell some sort of sharpening tool for scissors, but this one looks really good. Be careful with the seam rip, it's really dangerous, no jokes here now. I've stabbed myself before with that thing. It's really sharp and it hurts a lot. And other things that happened to me is that I've opened buttonholes much more than I needed, and I've also ripped material, not the seam but the material behind it. So be really careful with it. When using it, go really slowly, and for example with buttonholes a good trick is to put a pin sideways so you don't rip the whole thing. I learned that the hard way. So these are the things I wish I had known / listened to more carefully when I started sewing. I'm sure you knew a lot of them, but maybe you have new ones I haven't mentioned, so please let us know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you know someone who might like this content, please share it, and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, so that way you don't miss anything next week. Bye!